Let us explore how meditations two forgotten dynamos and why we need them both. We've previously spoken about how patriarchy is like fungus or mold, and we find its tendrils everywhere. In fact, Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks. But no, not in the fun, tingly way. So if I'm sitting unusually right now, it's because my back's barking and I'm pressing against a heating pad. So let's continue. So Yang or patriarchy is so rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel that it skews their perspective on everything, including enlightenment. But remember, at least 10% of the general population are prone to yin, prone to matriarchy, and are characteristically flexible, loving, rational, laid-back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. So, from the yin point of view, enlightenment is merely mastery of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. Now, mastery can seem like a daunting word, but all mastery means is that we've gotten so good at something that we practice it spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. Make sure that's on camera. Come on, machine, don't be that way. Good. Okay. So, as children, we mastered many things. Did we not master using the commode instead of our diapers? Did we not master tying our shoes, brushing our teeth, riding a bike? Did we not master reading and writing and arithmetic? One of the keys to so the Buddha taught in the second to the final passage of his discourse on the four bases of mindfulness, the Satipatthana, for those who are sticklers, that one could master this path in as little as 7 days. Let's find out why. The Eightfold Path has a built-in supercharger. Consider the 7th and 8th folds of mindfulness and meditation. In previous lessons, I've explained that the essence of mindfulness is to silently and mentally recite the verb watch as we passively notice air enter our nostrils, and that the essence of meditation is to silently and mentally recite the verb rest as we passively notice air exit our nostrils. Therefore, I'd like to use the phrase sitting and breathing and watching and resting. This is all it takes to effortlessly and automatically master the remaining 6 folds of the path. And I look forward to exploring that over the next 2.5 days or so. That's quite a promise. So let's, rather than just you falling into the precipice of duality, of belief or disbelief, let us look at what the neuroscience has to say. When we make the mistake of actively focusing and actively analyzing, we wind up so exhausting both our medial prefrontal cortex as well as our dorsolateral prefrontal cortex that we wind up triggering our amygdala, the seat of both anxiety and aggression. That sucks, doesn't it? That's the opposite of what we want out of meditation. We want peace. We want love. Do we not? Fortunately, by passively cooperating with our autonomic nervous system, whose core is found within our spinal cord. Not only do we automatically calm both the anxiety and aggression of our amygdala, but we automatically stimulate our anterior cingulate gyrus, which functions as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy, which is pretty cool. So let's get down to brass tacks. What's the actual process by which we authentically practice mindfulness and meditation in cooperation with our autonomic nervous system? Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we have evolved to automatically access the middle bit of our spinal cord, which functions as the core of the sympathetic aspect of our autonomic nervous system. A lot of big words, I know. If these are new to you, I apologize. And if you have any questions, don't be shy. Just type them as specifically as you can in the chat window. For I tend to check for questions periodically. This sympathetic aspect of our autonomic nervous system has evolved to help us to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice. Notice what? Notice all mind's antics of perception. You know, seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling, and the like, including the full spectrum of human emotions, intentions, cognitions, recollections, and imaginings. All of them, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the convenient to the arduous, and from the glorious to the grotesque. But the question remains, what are we to do with all this stuff that we noticed? The answer is quite simple. We meditate. You see, every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we have evolved to automatically access both the tippy top as well as the very bottom of that same spinal cord. These two regions, working as a team, function as the core of the parasympathetic aspect of our autonomic nervous system. So in other words, our autonomic nervous system has two halves. This parasympathetic aspect has evolved to help us to physically relax and mentally release during our exhalation to such a degree that that which we watched during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining or not self, and as non-graspable as a vast empty void. This is page 34. I'm gonna write myself a quick note. Control G3, 4. Okay, now I'm gonna adjust the OBS because everything went kerflooey. Okay. It would seem that a simile is only as effective as it is relatable. So let us ask the question, what is a real-world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could be tantalizing to the eye, is non-graspable to the hand? And there you have it. Whether we're discussing no self or emptiness, they are both just figures of speech to describe the fleeting phenomena latent within each exhalation. Now, remember we talked about 90% of humans are into yang or patriarchy. And they're rigid and fearful and superstitious and controlling and elitist and cryptic, competitive and cruel. And so in their elitism and in their rigidity, they make outlandish promises. They say, once you master no self, you'll never suffer again. Once you master emptiness, you'll never suffer again. Of course, they do a wretched job of telling people how to master those things. And so it becomes sort of a thought-stopping cliche, which is very common in cults. The Buddha never promised we would be free from stress. The Buddha didn't promise we would be free from the presence of stress, only its tyranny. That it would no longer control our choices or utterances or deeds. That's the freedom Buddha offers. That's the liberation Buddha offers. And the reason, one of the many reasons why patriarchy never leads to full enlightenment is they have a definition of enlightenment that is not rooted in a nuanced understanding of the Buddha's teachings. Patriarchy is rigid, and rigidity is antithetical to the comprehension of figures of speech. When I was in junior high, I learned the term adroit, which means skillful or nimble. Yin promotes nimbleness of mind. Spiritual matriarchy promotes, strengthens, and supports the nimbleness of mind necessary to master the Buddha's path. Remember, if all no self and emptiness does is fleetingly help us let go, then what good is it? The answer is, well, it's part of a two-step process of watching and resting that makes the mastery of the remaining sixfold path into an inevitability. Perhaps that is why the Buddha promised in his penultimate passage of the Satipatthana Sutta that one could master his path in as little as 7 days. So it's simple. Once every 12 hours or so, let us sit and breathe and watch and rest. If you feel that if that still feels challenging for you to do solo, you're welcome to join me every 12 hours on the Tube app. Because on the Clock app, if I say the real name of the Tube app, they lose their minds. How do you know if you're on the Tube app? If you see both my visual aids and my funny face, then you're on the Tube app. 9 times out of 10, I teach every 12 hours. Come to the live streams, and within a week or two, this entire set of skills you can master. No, it doesn't mean you're going to fly, doesn't mean you're going to be magic, doesn't mean you're going to be Qui-Gon Jinn, but it does mean that you're going to be more of a healthy, well-adjusted adult. That you're going to experience greater joyful love, a greater peace, and greater genius. For the key to using all the regions of our central nervous system is our passive cooperation with our autonomic nervous system. Let's see. This is the Dzogchen Sunday Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For multiple decades, I've spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that you would not have to. It is General Leia Organa early Saturday morning. Let us meditate like a Jedi. So, the essence of Bengali crease counting is counting 13 sets of single repetitions of watching and resting, in addition to 13 sets of a dozen repetitions of watching and resting, for a total of 13 sets of 13 repetitions per collection, which takes about 14 minutes or so. Remember, a single repetition is as follows. As we passively notice air enter our nostrils, we silently and mentally recite the verb watch. And as we passively notice air exit our nostrils, we silently and mentally recite the verb rest. Remember, this is passively watching. We are not focusing on it. We're not concentrating on our breath to the intensity or to the detriment of our perception of everything else. Au contraire. It's a gentle thing. Think of it this way. We were emulating the example of an enthusiastic piano student who's so enthralled with his sheet music and his keyboard that he merely holds the sound of his clicking metronome in passive peripheral awareness. We're going to play for as long as I can continue sitting. My back really is giving me fits and starts. We're going to play with the Pasadimudra, which could translate as meditation gesture. Meditation gesture is profoundly useful. It helps us to gently invite our real or imagined subtle energy to coalesce at the crown of our head. It helps us when we lie down at night in bed in preparation for sleep. It helps us at the end of our life when we're preparing to transition as peacefully as possible. And humbly, the Pasadimudra also helps us to keep track of our first single repetition of watch rest. But the question remains, how do we practice this Pasadimudra? Simple. We simply take, and I'm going to adjust the camera here to turn me into Kilroy. We simply use the tip of our left index finger to support the lower knuckle of our right index finger, palms up in our lap. Congratulations, we've counted our first single repetition. To keep track of our first set of a dozen repetitions, we turn our attention to our right hand. Every time we silently and mentally recite the verb watch during our inhalation, we advance our right thumb across our fingers, beginning with the set of creases at the bottom of our right little finger and concluding with the set of creases near the top of our right index finger. Together as a team, let's practice right now. I'm going to turn up the heat on my heating pad. All right, so gathering our first collection of 1 solitary repetition and 1 dozen 1 dozen repetitions takes just a little bit more than a minute. So to keep track of our second solitary repetition, let us place the tip of our left thumb upon the lower set of creases of our left little finger. To keep track of our second set, or our next set of a dozen repetitions, or a dozen rounds, let us return to our right hand. And now you get the basic idea of how we count of how we gather multiple collections of single repetitions as well as dozen repetitions. So let us place our hands palms up in our lap. Now, this is where I would typically sit with you for another 45 minutes and meditate, but I really need to go back to bed so I can rest my back. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. For Meditate Like a Jedi is made possible thanks to the generosity of viewers just like you. In approximately 10 1/3 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's dusk practice of Meditate Like a Jedi. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.